Hello and welcome to Know Before You Go for the 33rd Sunday of Ordinary Time. I'm Father Scott Steinkerchner and I'm on the road again right now in northern Michigan. And I'm standing in front of this lovely window, the Holy Spirit coming down but bringing shards of light and fire to the whole world, setting it on fire, breaking it apart as he breaks through. 'Tis a bit apocalyptic, and it's good because we got apocalyptic literature coming towards the end of the liturgical year. So I think it's good that we understand what apocalyptic literature is all about. Then this will make sense for us. So apocalyptic literature is revelatory literature that's told in a story form, but with heavenly beings, otherworldly beings, in an otherworldly place, showing what's going on that other plane to somebody in this world, with implications for how things will work out in this world. So it's a story between worlds and beings from both the other world and this world. So our first reading is that kind of thing. It's from the book of Daniel. And Daniel is a very interesting book, you know. We put it among the prophets, saying Daniel was a prophet. But in the Hebrew Bible, it is in the writings, which are after the prophets, meaning it's a later book than the prophets. And Daniel's a bit of both. So the figure of Daniel is someone who lived in the Babylonian exile, 6th century BC, when Jerusalem was sacked and the people were carried off to Babylon, and there they sat weeping, you know, as the temple was ruined and they had to figure out what to do. And Daniel, in the story, is a person who was persecuted, thrown into a fire because he wouldn't eat pork. But he survives. He survives the fire and lots of other tests and comes through it. Well, the book of Daniel that we have it, though, isn't quite that. In the 2nd century BC, the Jewish community, after rebuilding, was persecuted again. And their religion was taken away from them. And there was pushback saying, no, we're Jewish and we have our ways, let us have it. And it was terrible. So a writer then, during the Maccabean revolt, in the 2nd century BC, took this tradition from Daniel and reworked it, adding it to it visions with images from the day, from that period, saying, look, stand back, God is at work here, and He'll rescue us, because we can't rescue ourselves. So let's have a wee bit of a listen of that. It's Daniel chapter 12. In those days, I, Daniel, heard this word of the Lord. At that time there shall arise Michael, the great prince, guardian of your people. It shall be a time unsurpassed in distress, since nations began until that time. At that time your people shall escape, everyone who is found written in the book. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake. Some shall live forever. Others shall be in an everlasting horror and disgrace. It goes on, you know. Apocalyptic literature. Michael the archangel will come. Well, in our gospel, the evangelist Mark appropriates Daniel and reworks it, putting Jesus into the same framework. Because in Mark's day, Christians were again persecuted. In the Roman Empire, they were a small little minority, and they were being slaughtered because they wouldn't worship the emperor. Like Daniel back when, like the Maccabeans. So here's what Mark does. Chapter 13. Jesus said to his disciples, in those days after that tribulation, the sun will be darkened, the moon will not give its light, and the stars will be fallen from the sky, and the powers in heaven will be shaken. And then they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. And then he will send out the angels and gather his elect from the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the end of the sky. And it goes on. But you see what Mark did? More apocalyptic literature. But this time, instead of Michael the archangel coming on the clouds, it's Jesus coming on the clouds, directing the angels and bringing people from everywhere to be rescued. Because we're at another time when we can't save ourselves. But don't worry, the evangelist tells us Jesus already won this battle, and we just need to stand back, keep faithful to him, and he will win it for us. If we're faithful to him on his side, he will gather us, and in the end, all will be well. Now, not before there's some more tribulation, right? Even at the time of Babylon, that's what happened. The people were called out and stayed out for 50 years, something like that, before they came back. And Jesus had to die and rise again. And so Christians, you'll be persecuted, but in the end, is what it says, surely. So, what are we to make of this today? Living in America, I don't necessarily feel persecuted, but Christians are persecuted around the world. I raise money for work in Haiti, and I can't even go, not just because of the pandemic, but because the pandemic has caused chaos there. And the president was assassinated, and it was a tinderbox that blew up. And 17 missionaries at one time were abducted, and they're still being held for ransom to this day. That's persecuted just for trying to help. They are kidnapped, their lives are in danger. And even this pandemic, we're trying to get out. We can't find our way yet. We need some help, certainly. So what are we to do? We keep our nose down, and we stay on God's side, and we trust. We keep faithful to following Jesus, and Jesus will lead us. We don't have to solve all the problems in the world because we can't. But we stay faithful to living as Jesus would have us live, and then Jesus will solve this and bring us one day home. That's the promise. And it says it in a lovely way in the psalm today. You are my inheritance, O Lord. O Lord, my allotted portion and my cup. You it is who hold fast my lot. I set the Lord ever before me. With him at my right hand, I shall not be disturbed. You are my inheritance, O Lord. The point of the gospel is Mark is reminding us that Jesus said, things will get worse, and I'm telling it to you ahead of time. But that's a sign that the world needs saved. that the world needs me. It's not a sign that I'm not coming. So know that's true. And when you see the signs, when you see the troubles, trust that God has this under control and God will lead us forth. That's our good news for this week. God bless you.